Now, the 26th Climate Change Conference of the United Nations is all set to kick off from the 1st of November. Climate issues will, of course, take centre stage over the course of the next week. Several activists are making their way to Glasgow as well, as they are seeking some sort of action, some sort of policy changes from the heads of the government. A global environmental movement known as Extinction Rebellion held a pilgrim procession. The procession included people who walked hundreds of miles to reach Glasgow for the summit. The activists are demanding for some concrete measures against climate change by the political leadership.
So we just want to see concrete measures. We want to see support for the Global South as well. We want to really see, this needs to be on the front of every newspaper. It needs to be talked about across the political agenda, and we need to do something now because, we need to start basically.
And hundreds of activists also joined a special train service from the capital of Netherlands, Amsterdam, hoping that COP26 will be a landmark conference.
Everything, and it is our job to make it very clear. Traveling by train on this distance is just an opportunity to divide by 10 the carbon emission when we compare that to an airline.
The young climate activist Greta Thunberg also reached Glasgow after making a pit stop to attend a small protest against the role of global banks in the fossil fuel industry. Some of the residents in Glasgow shared their disappointment of the in-person absence of world leaders. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has decided to give the summit a bit of a miss, while the Chinese President Xi Jinping will be attending it online.
I'm a little disappointed in some regards that some of the larger countries, world leaders aren't attending because they do tend to be some of the larger polluters, and the fact that they're not attending, I think, says it all in reality.
Meanwhile, security has been tightened at the ongoing G20 summit in Rome. Thousands of people rallied in the capital as part of the Fridays for Future March. Climate and post-pandemic recovery are the key focus of these summits. All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION this hour. And this, of course, is coming from Sudan, where tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets in KHARTOUM, the capital of Sudan, in the largest pro-democracy protest since the military seized control earlier this week. Now, at least 3 protesters, according to reports, have been killed and dozens of others have been injured as security forces opened fire in several locations. The Sudan security forces have fired live rounds and also tear gassed the pro-democracy protesters. The police, for their part, have denied using live ammunition. The shootings have happened despite repeated appeals by the West to Sudan's new military rulers to show restraint and also to allow for peaceful protests. And demonstrators in Khartoum were seen marching with the Sudanese flags and chanting "No to military rule" and "Revolution, revolution." The protesters also took to the streets in cities in central and eastern and northern part of Sudan. They're calling for the immediate resignation of Sudan's top military general, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and also the reinstatement of the ousted Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok. Now, more than 13 protesters have been killed and at least 140 others have been injured in clashes with security forces this week. Authorities have cut off internet and other communications and have also imposed restrictions on the movement of people. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has claimed that the transition to democracy will continue despite the military's takeover. He's also said that he'll install a new government pretty soon. Until the 25th of October, on the day that the coup happened, the military and the civilian leaders had been in an uneasy power-sharing deal. since Omar al-Bashir had been overthrown back in 2019. Now, al-Bashir, who had run Sudan for nearly about 3 decades, was deposed by the army and also due to popular protests in April 2019 after months of protests against his rule. And since then, the country had been ruled by an uneasy alliance between the military and the civilian leaders. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.